What's up everyone? Did you know? An analysis of 11 cycles since 1950 shows that recessions have persisted between 2 and 18 months, with the average spanning about 10 months. So why is this good to know? First, it reassures us that the stock market recovers. More details on that later. And second, emergency funds are essential for building and keeping retirement savings. This way, you do not need to panic and sell when there's a market turndown and end up losing a lot of money. Now here's a graph showing the history of the S&P 500. Real fast, the S&P 500 is a stock market index that tracks 500 US companies across 11 sectors, which gives a good idea on the stock market's health. Along with that, the average return rate for the S&P 500 since 1957 has been over 11%, and adjusted for inflation is about 8.5%. The blue line on the graph here indicates the S&P 500 overall index. The orange or red-orange line is the EPS or earnings per share. You can see there have been obvious downturns or recessions. A recession is defined by 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP. But here on this graph, you can see a clear trend of how the market progresses and keeps doing better over time. Whether we like it or not, economic downturns, bear markets, and recessions are to be expected. It's just a part of the economic process. And since the 2000s, there have been 3 main recessions. First is the dot-bomb recession, lasting from March 2001 to November 2001. Next is the well-known Great Recession, which lasted from December 2007 to June 2009. And most recent that you may or may not be aware of is the COVID-19 recession, which lasted just 2 months from February 2020 to April 2020. So it's important to remind ourselves that economic downturns are normal and very well may happen during retirement or sooner. The best next step is to get prepared. In today's video, I will share what emergency funds are exactly, how they differ from retirement savings, and how much should be saved up in an emergency fund before retiring. So what is an emergency fund? When it comes to a typical emergency fund, you may be thinking of having enough cash saved up in case of a car breakdown, or just having some extra cash on hand to cover unexpected emergencies. We can see from Dave Ramsey's 7 baby step philosophy that his first step is to save up a $1,000 emergency fund. He then recommends paying off debt before saving up a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. Having this longer emergency fund is great if someone happens to lose a job, so they can pull from that cash reserve while looking for a new job. So basically, the more you have saved up in your emergency fund, the more powerful it gets. In a traditional sense of the term emergency fund, these baby steps are a great way to go. Although my wife and I don't fully follow all of Dave Ramsey's baby steps, there's still a lot of wisdom that can be taken from them. If interested, I created another video sharing each of Dave Ramsey's baby steps along with my opinion and experiences with each one. So feel free to check that out if you like. Today I want to emphasize how emergency funds can take on a whole new meaning when it comes to keeping your nest egg safe in retirement. When an economic downturn happens, you can temporarily reduce or stop taking out withdrawals from your retirement savings. An emergency fund becomes a life preserver that keeps you afloat, covering all monthly living expenses amidst the fluctuations of the stock market. So how does this emergency fund differ from retirement savings? First and foremost, they are not held in the same location. An emergency savings fund should never be put in the stock market for hopefully obvious reasons. This money must be readily available to help cover living expenses. Also, be careful to not put your emergency savings into a traditional savings account. The interest rate on these are so low and will easily be eaten up by inflation. Instead, simply put it into a high yield savings account. Although the interest rate can fluctuate, it is much better than a traditional savings account. Just make sure to do your research looking at the different high yield savings accounts available out there. And the second main difference is that the purpose is entirely different. The money in your retirement accounts in the stock market is there to support you long term through retirement. An emergency fund is for emergencies. Be careful to not take it out for any other reason. In the case you're already in retirement and there is a long economic downturn, that is the perfect scenario to use an emergency fund. Now on to the fun question. How much should you have saved up in your emergency savings fund before retiring? Honestly, the exact number will look different for everyone. It depends on a few things. First is your nest egg size. One person's nest egg may provide them with $40,000 per year to cover living expenses. Another person, on the other hand, may have up to $100,000 that they use for living expenses every year. So we can see here that the exact number for these two people's emergency funds will be completely different. Next is risk level or risk tolerance. A good rule of thumb is to have a 2 to 3 year fully funded emergency fund saved up. Some of us may feel that 2 to 3 years is plenty long enough, while others may feel that 5, even 10 plus years is sufficient. But there is another factor here that we need to keep in mind, and that is personal preference. Some of us may be perfectly comfortable living a simpler lifestyle when using emergency fund money. This would also make the emergency fund fund lasts longer. For example, let's say that somebody in retirement is used to living off $45,000, but the economy has seen a GDP decrease of 2+ consecutive quarters. This means that we're entering a recession, and some people may be more comfortable living off $25,000 instead of $45,000 for that recession period. So remember to keep in mind your nest egg size, your risk tolerance, and personal preferences. A quick note is that there are many other factors that will affect you in retirement during an economic downturn. For example, being in debt. A good rule of thumb is to eliminate all debt before retiring, because paying back debt in retirement must be considered in your expenses. With all said and done, it is well worth having an emergency fund to keep you afloat in retirement. If you found today's video insightful or helpful, please leave a like and subscribe for more content to come. Catch you next time.